Good evening and welcome to another new episode in Great Conversation and Talks. This is Jennifer and I'm a student at GCT. It's great to see you all after a month break and I guess you're all still with the same enthusiasm as before. So it's time to welcome our guests today. We have Ms.Niranjana Balasundaram and Mr. Chandrasekhar. Ms. Niranjana is from the batch of 1995 CSE department. We are glad to have you here, ma'am. Well, this is not the first time she's here to deliver a talk. She's been here before a couple of times, and she has enlightened us with her words. About her, she's a yoga teacher, a classical dancer, an aspiring martial artist, music composer, singer, poet, and the list goes on. She has 20 plus experience as an entrepreneur, architect, technical lead, software engineer, and product owner. She's a co-founder of Zetasoft Inc. Currently, she's working in Dialpad as an engineering manager. I would describe her as a multi-talented person. In this talk, Ms. Niranjana is going to enlighten us with the topic Relearning Sivagamiyin Sabatham. Mr. Chandrasekhar will be joining us to answer the question and answer segment. He's the director at 247.ai. Once again, I welcome you, ma'am, and Chandrasekhar sir, and all the audience. Without taking much of your time, let's go into the session. Before that, a kind announcement to the audience. If you have any comments or queries, please use the chat or comment box. That's all from my side. Ma'am, the session is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning to those who saw a beautiful sunrise and good evening to those who saw a beautiful sunset. I'd like to introduce my friend Chandrasekhar to you all. Chandrasekhar is a friend and a guide who helped me to shape up this talk. He introduced me to Carnatic, Hindustani, and Abhangs. He has many interests just like me. He has keychain collection hobby, music, Tamil, the list goes on. As Jennifer pointed out, he's a director working as a financial professional in Bangalore. With that, I'll just start sharing my slides with you. I just want to set the mood, so let's just take it from here.
Yeah, thanks for that one, Niranjana. Yeah.
Before this, I want to congratulate each and every one here because India got its gold medal now. And it's in javelin. As it's a coincidence that this particular novel, Sivagamiyin Sabatham, the opening scene is that of a character called Paranjodi throwing his spear at a mad elephant. I somehow felt it is such a coincidence and that I felt overwhelmed when India won its gold medal. Now, you must all know this particular picture that I'm showing. This is the majesticity of Mahabalipuram, and that this entire presentation is in alignment to Mahabalipuram in the Pallava dynasty. I want to talk about a couple of things before we start. One is that please mask up, please get your vaccination done, please take care of yourself good, and help those who would want to get their vaccination, whether it is your house help or neighborhood. Please conduct a vaccination drive and help those children who need nutritious meal or in any way possible. Please do help India come back again strong and mighty. I will now start relearning Sivagamiyin Sabatham. When I wrote this, Pradeep, a big shout out to you. When I first approached him, I had this concept. Would there be a slot for me? I wanted to share. I didn't come up with a title that was very pleasing. So he suggested, can you think more? And I ended up with Relearning Sivagamiyin Sabatham. And I must congratulate the entire GCT team who were organizing this particular talk. Kudos to you all. Very, very methodically it is done, very professionally it is done. It is a pleasure to work with you all again. So what does relearning Sivagamiyin Sabatham really means is that I thought about it. First, I learned Sivagamiyin Sabatham. I had to unlearn everything. And I have to relook at this particular story in a different way now that I've been a professional, a mother, and a person who played many roles. And after so many years, when I looked at it, the things that inspired me, the things that I got out of this novel when I reread it again, it was overwhelmingly interesting to me. So I would like to thank my coach, Sukobodhananda Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Buddhist monk. And I would like to give my special thanks to my classmates, Arun Mani and Rajesh Kaniyappan, for really giving me this kind of a spark when we talk about it. Let me talk about Sivagamiyin Sabatham, really. See, my paternal grandparents are from Namakkal, and that I had the fortune of spending most of my childhood in Namakkal. The pastime was reading books and going to the temples in the evening. And one of the majestic temples in Namakkal was this Narasimha Temple, which is in a big rock. Those who want to Google Namakkal Narasimha Temple, you can do that. It was a rock cut architecture. And that I got to read books by Kalki Krishnamurti. He wrote many books, but two books that are very important to me, very close to my heart, are Ponniyin Selvan. Now it is even getting filmed by Maniratnam. The production started. It is a must-read book for you. The second one is Sivagamiyin Sabatham. So what was very interesting about this book is that it is part history, part fiction. The historical facts were presented, and that the fictional characters somehow they were interwoven and then building into that story. What was more interesting is that this is the first novel this was written about 1944 to 1946, and it came in a weekly, basically. It's called Kalki, and that every chapter, think about it, you have to wait for 2 years to complete it. And person like me who always want to know the ending, how the story ends, it was very important to me, and I couldn't wait it. But fortunately, I didn't live in that time, right? But my grandparents took this weekly, somehow they bound the book. So I immediately after the first part, I went to the last chapter to see what was happening, what's going to happen. This entire novel is written in 4 parts, and I'm only covering one part. Just this one part was like a tapas to me. I worked on it for 3 months, and it was really overwhelming. And this art is by renowned artist Mani.
Niranjana, that's very interesting that you've chosen to talk about Sivagamiyin Sabatham here. A couple of questions. Why Sivagamiyin Sabatham, and why not something else? And also, could you throw a little light on when did you first read this? As you said it at that time it came in the weekly, Kalki magazine and all that stuff. But how has the rereading of Sivagamiyin Sabatham lately changed your perspective of the epic?
Excellent question, Chandra. Actually, this is true. Right? Why did I choose Sivagamiyin Sabatham is because of an ordinary conversation with a friend of mine. This is lockdown. So I was introduced to a lot of Buddhist related topics at that time. And I was reading so many books related. I was introduced to Nichiren's Buddhism also. And that I came across this article about a monk. His name is Thich Quang Duc. This is during the Vietnam War between South Vietnam and North Vietnam, and that how this particular monk, he's an old monk, very wise monk, he just self-immolated himself in the middle of a street to stop the communist government from torturing the Buddhist monks. And this is the time US President John F. Kennedy was there, and it really shook him to the core. When I came across this article and I was talking to a friend, Rajesh, just on a casual talk, I was talking to him that I was reading this book called Silence by Thich Nhat Hanh, and that he mentioned this monk. And the conversation went on discussing about different monks. And this is the same time I read a book called Siddhartha. Siddhartha is by Hermann Hesse. I really recommend you all read it. And Silence by Thich Nhat Hanh I mentioned. And I read this book, Think Like Monk by Jay Shetty. So many. Everybody was somewhat or other, this article kept popping up. And so when I was talking to this monk, suddenly some flash came to me about a monk whose name was Naganandi, who was present in Sivagamiyin Sabatham as a villain character. So I started describing this particular monk to my friend. And as I was talking to him, there was a different spark that came to me. I started thinking that I'm seeing this story very differently. Now, given this, why did I even look at Sivagamiyin Sabatham? This is the background why I started looking into Sivagamiyin Sabatham. So I looked at this monk, I thought about Naganandi, who is present in Sivagamiyin Sabatham, and that is why I thought I'll go back and look at that book. Then something else popped in me, is that Sivagamiyin Sabatham is the first novel where a female character was in the lead role. There are two important Tamil books I really recommend that you read. One is called Kulatangare Arasamaram by Vavesu Iyer. This was about a girl. A people tree would be telling this story about this little girl who grew up and then how her life story ends. This is the first short Tamil story in Tamil literature. And Sivagamiyin Sabatham, Sivagami is the main character who binds all other characters in that novel. Given that it is 1944 and how, I wouldn't say women were treated badly or anything, but the importance was given by Kalki Krishnamurti. And it is not that she's like a warrior or anything like that. She's very vulnerable. She has all her weaknesses. She's very talented, very intelligent, yet she's very vulnerable. And she longs for the relationship with the Narasimha Pallavar, who is the son of Mahendra Varma Pallavar. In a minute, I will introduce you to the characters. But that is why I started looking at that book again, and that I ended up borrowing it from a friend. And thanks, Suganti, if you're listening to this, thanks to you. Nobody had this book, right? This is like very long time back. Nobody even would know about this book, but fortunately I got the book again and I read it. One thing though, is that I was talking to you, Chandrasekhar, about the art by Maniam, which would be of very interest to you, because you do know about his son.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Maniam Selvam himself is a legend in his own right. Yeah. So talking about the spark, right? This famous poem by none other than Subramanya Bharati, right? He says, "Akkini kunjondru kandeen, adai angoru kaattilor pondidai vaithen, vendu tanindadu kaadu, vendu tanindadu kaadu, kadal veerathil kunjendrum muppendrum undo." He says. So, I mean, such an inspiring piece of literature where he says, a spark, whether it is a little one or a bigger one, doesn't make any difference. It will do what it's supposed to do, right?
Exactly. See, that is the point, Chandrasekhar. This spark really put me in this tapas mode, for like whatever I saw, whatever I listened, whatever I read, somehow everything was connected. And I thought I must share this with others. And this is very important that all of us should have this spark. In one of my earlier talks, I did talk about Ikigai, the very purpose of your life, the spark that makes you get up every day morning, the spark that gets you going, the spark that makes you do things that you do. It is essential. So as you rightly pointed out, it doesn't matter. A spark has the power, the potential to burn the entire forest. I'm not saying we all should go and burn the forest, but we can make difference in whatever way that we can to the society.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for saying that so beautifully. And I know you're into music, so that Vendu Tanindadu Kaadu Tazhal Veerathil Kunjendru Muppendru Undu. I am a big fan of Mahakavi Bharati. For every situation, he will come up with one or the other thing that still stands, it still holds. That is the important.
Absolutely. Even I think for those listening, if you know Tamil, if you can read Tamil, you should try Bharati, and he has the power to change your lives. His verses, his songs actually can change your life. That's the inspiration that he has given to so many generations of people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
also,
we were talking about, so we were talking about how, going back to my previous question, right? So this is, how did this time when you first read it to how you reread it, how did it make a difference? Did the time that passed in between make any difference? Or did how you had, changed from say a teenager when you possibly read it to now you being a mother, a wife, a professional? How does it look to you now, and what has changed?
exactly. This is from Arthashastra. This is by Kautilya, the Chanakya. So this is the same time I was reading a lot of Chanakya, Niti, etc. So there is a book by Radhakrishnan Pillai, and I really invite you to read that. And this goes back to your question. So when I first read Sivagamiyin Sabatham, it takes about a month to read, really, or more. When I was very small, let's say about 10 years, nothing really was standing out. It's just a story. I didn't have much to do, so I would just sit and read. But when I was a teenager, the story was, what stood out in the story was the romance between Narasimha Pallavar and Sivagami. And being a dancer, I was, empathizing with Sivagami. And I was so angry at Mahendra Varma Pallavar, the dad, the great king, the emperor of Pallava dynasty. Why he is so against, Sivagami from getting married to this Narasimha Varma Pallavar, right? Why is he so bad? I mean, he has built this great kingdom. He's not fighting anymore. He's not doing anything. Why can't he just get them married? I mean, that was the thing. And at the end of the story, you do learn that Sivagami does not get married to Narasimha Varma Pallavar. In fact, I was so angry. I was feeling sad. And I threw that book out when the second time when I read, because this is like, he didn't do justice to Sivagami. That is all was in my mind for that age. Now, after being wise and with gray hair, when I read Sivagamiyin Sabatham, I started looking at Mahendra Varma Pallavar with all my professional coaches, the leaders that I came across, and the people who inspired me. I really saw him as somebody else. The time literally changed my perception. And that was my first learning, is that time matures all beings. Definitely it does. It changes our perception. Whoever is so close to us today, tomorrow they wouldn't be. And only thing that is constant in all of our life is change. And so that was my lesson. I changed my perception and I saw things completely different. And that was very interesting to me.
That's very insightful, actually, when you say that, Sivagamiyin Sabatham, when being reread, gave you so many insights. So, what are the big takeaways that, that you would point to from what do we get out of this?
See, Chandrasekhar, we are only covering part one, but in one part alone, I could clearly see there are 4 takeaways we could take from this particular novel. How to live our life as a legacy, not leaving a legacy, but at this now, right now, how do I live my legacy life? And second thing I saw clearly was, how do we strengthen our strengths and weaken our weakness? And how all of us must have this concept clarity and action clarity. And the 4th point that I took out from that part 1 was, how clearly is that we are all authors of our own story. Nobody else. You have the full power and you are the only author of your own story. Nobody else. These are all the 4 takeaways that you would do from this talk, as well as from part 1 or any book, I guess. If you start looking at things differently, you will definitely get these kind of clear points all along. especially history related or any autobiography, you will really see there is a pattern that runs around, and it kind of inspires you that way.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Niranjana, when you say that, as someone who is not read, like, I don't know, maybe I know, I don't know if I'm right in saying most others, listening to this. So that will be very interesting to know how Sivagamiyin Sabatham, talks about these four big takeaways that you've mentioned here. So yeah, over to you. Yeah.
So first, Chandrasekhar, I'm going to explain the story to you or give a gist of the story. So this is something just to give you an idea about how the Pallava dynasty is really, and that I want to talk about. So the story is between a war, Pallava dynasty versus Chalukya dynasty that you would see here. So there is a war that is coming up. And so you just keep this picture in mind. So somebody has to come from here to fight. Okay, you keep that in mind. Now, next, I'm going to introduce you to the characters of this story. The story, as I said, is very simple. There is a war between Chalukyas and Pallavas. And all these characters come along the story. The story is about Mahendra Varma Pallavar, Narasimha Varma Pallavar, and Paranjodi. Remember, I was telling you, India won its first gold medal in javelin. And he is Paranjodi. The opening scene of this novel, as I said, is that Paranjodi would be throwing the spear on a mad elephant. So it is so much humbling to me that India won its gold medal and that I get to talk about this opening scene. So it is in our blood. It is in our blood that the spears and, bow and arrow, all of it is in our blood. And she is Sivagami, the very beautiful, very talented dancer of Sivagamiyin Sabatham. And this is Ayanar. This is the father of Sivagami. And he's a master sculptor. And he's the dance teacher of Sivagami. So now I want to talk about, about Pallavas. I explained to you, they are the South Indian kings. Now, Chalukyas, basically present Karnataka and a bit of Maharashtra there. Pulikesi is a very, very able king, just like Mahendra Varma Pallavar. And I wanted to point out, I don't know how many of you saw a movie called Endgame. In Endgame, it is very interesting because the able Avengers are fighting the mighty Thanos. If Thanos was a very ordinary villain, you wouldn't have that, thrill to watch that movie. You really want the Avengers to win, but they fail. The previous movie of, I don't know, I forgot the name of the movie, but before Endgame, there was a series, they are done. He gets all the stones with a click, people disappear, they come back, Avengers come back. Thanos gives them the fight. They have to do all these time travel, etc., to really overcome Thanos. Similarly, Pulikesi is a very able king to Narasimha Varma Pallavar. His only thing is to conquest Pallava kingdom. He wanted to expand, basically. He's assisted by Naganandi, who is the brother. Okay.
Go on,
He's the
Infinity War.
Infinity War. Okay, thanks. He's assisted by Naganandi, his twin brother. Think about it, in 1944, Kalki is talking about twin brothers, okay? And he's a Buddhist monk. See, this is why when you see this picture, you will understand why I was like startled when I was talking about this monk who self-immolated himself versus Naganandi, who's, the cruelty that comes up even in Maniam's drawings. Right. And because he's monk, he's able to freely roam around Pallava kingdom and he's able to do many things for Pulikesi. So the story is that's it. Pulikesi is waging a war against Pallava kingdom, and either Narasimha Varma Pallavar has to defend his fortress, and that first he loses it, period, and he dies. So the first part is all about Mahendra Varma Pallavar. Second part is predominantly Mahendra Varma Pallavar. And then he dies, he loses the battle to Pulikesi. Not in a way that was appreciated, but Pulikesi kind of I wouldn't say it was a strategy by which he wins the war. And the third and fourth part is about how Narasimha Varma Pallava has to work 9 years to build his army and go take on Pulikesi. It's really beautiful because Sivagami will be abducted by Pulikesi and she will be present in Vadapi, which is the capital of Chalukya kingdom, and that she will be there and she will refuse to escape. She will say, Narasimha Varma Pallava should come and destroy this Pulikesi and get me out. This reminded me of Ramayana, Sita sitting in Sri Lanka and waiting for Rama to come. And there is one part where Narasimha Varma Pallava will be training Paranjodi, who is a mighty warrior. There is a scene where Kurukshetra Por will be portrayed. All these things, I did not think about it at all when I first read, second read, but the third time around, the time teaches you many things. People teach you many lessons and your situation teaches you many lessons. So all of it, there is this beautiful confluence of things is what I saw. So I hope you got the gist. So finally, when Narasimha Varma Pallava goes and conquests Vadapi, he destroys Vadapi. Vadapi is nothing but Badami, present Karnataka. Badami. And it's about 140 kilometers from Bangalore. Yeah. And there is only one fort that is there to talk about the Pulikesis. I mean, there are, writings there where they write in stone carvings, right? So they have those things which mentions about Pulikesi. Pretty much Narasimha Varma Pallava destroyed all the things that Pulikesi did. There is so much anger in him, he destroyed. But to do that, he has to build this army. He can't do it. He has to make so many alliances. So he marries a Chola princess. And Sivagami doesn't have Twitter, cell phone, nothing. So she has no knowledge of all these things. She still thinks Narasimha Varma Pallava will come and save her. And that when he conquers Pulikesi, and when there is a big welcome, etc., that is when Sivagami gets to see the princess coming up with another, in the procession she sees, and there is another. So now she assumes, okay, he's married, and that she dedicates her entire life to Egambareswarar, Kanjipuram. Kanjipuram is the capital of Pallava dynasty. She just dedicates her life to Egambareswarar and to her dance. And that is how the story goes. So,
yeah, very interesting. So that's exactly what I was, coming to, right? So now that we've spoken about a very brief, brief about the characters and stuff, it's interesting that you're talking about how somebody like Mahendra Varma Pallava or Pulikesi, how do they impart these lessons, right? What is the significance to these characters to what we're talking about today? How is that relevant?
I'm going to start with a story, Chandrasekhar. Mm-hmm. So a very small story. There was this man who was walking by and he saw 3 men working on 3 different rocks doing something. So he asked the first man, "What are you doing?" That man said, "Can't you see I'm just doing my work?" He asked the second person, "What are you doing?" He said, "I am living my life. I am doing things to live my life." The third person, he asked, "So what are you doing?" He stood up and he said, "I'm creating a magnificent sculpture here." That is what is legacy is all about. That spark with which you would be creating sculpture of your own self. In Mahendra Varma Pallava, I'm going to give how this story is relevant to Mahendra Varma Pallava. Mm-hmm. See, he's a Pallava king, and that he was a Jain, by the way. He's a patron of Jainism, but he converts himself to Saiva faith under the influence of Saiva saint Appa. Well, this is truth, and this is history. This is not something Kalki made it up, but this is truth. Okay. Now, as a king, what would you think? You would think about constant war or expanding your kingdom, etc., etc. Nothing. He didn't do anything of that. He first thought there was a lot of political influence from the religious leaders. So he wanted to give and create a stable government. a stable kingdom for his people. So he said this particular faith at that time is the right way to do it. So when he did this, when he converted himself, there was a lot of problems. The Jain leaders were very unhappy. They left Pallava kingdom. They went in here and there. Now there is a twist. The Jain leaders who left Pallava kingdom are the ones who went to Pulikesi and coaxed him up and said, this king, the Mahendravarma Pallava, did injustice to us. Go take revenge on him. So they helped him with a lot of logistics per se, but then Mahendravarma Pallava, he said, at this point, I am not going to fight any war, period. I am going to take care of my people. And with all these religious things playing a role in my kingdom, the first thing that I have to do is bring all the people together. And he decided there are two things that would bring people together: art and science. So if you read the history, he has built Kanchipuram University. Mm-hmm. And he is the pioneer in rock cut architecture. And he is a multilingual king, really. He knows Sanskrit, he knew Kannada, he knew many other, Telugu, he knew many other languages. And in fact, he created a play called Madhya Villasa Prahasan. And that it is written in Sanskrit, by the way. This is about those days, there was a sect called Kabalikas. And he wrote a play. It's a hasya, humorous play. It's a humorous play between how the Jains and Kabalikas would fight, or etc. etc. It's unbelievable for a king to have. And by the way, he's an excellent critic of dance, music, and paintings. Now, I wanted to tell you something very interesting. Near Pudukkottai is in Tamil Nadu. There is a place called Siddhanavasal. Even today, you can go to Siddhanavasal and you will see this Jain beds. See, it's like a big rock. In those days, at least in schools, they used to take us to Siddhanavasal, Senjikottai, all those things. I mean, it was like an excursion that you would go, but you wouldn't know that much of detail why you're going. It's just that you're going for a outing, right? But when I went to Siddhanavasal, there were paintings. If you remember this Ajanta and Ellora, there are paintings. Yep. The paint that is used is still valid today. And I'm going to talk something very funny. Indigo paint in India went IPO this time. Mahendra Singh Dhoni is the brand ambassador for Indigo paint, which talk about, the artistic paint. It is portrayed as artistic paint. We are talking about Pallava dynasty, and they invented these paints which are still there today. Nothing, I mean, even it's still shiny, right? It didn't lose its luster. And Mahendra Varma Pallava, he was, if you remember this particular character I talked about, Ayanar is the Sivagami's father. He was trying to tell him, somehow we have to get that chemical composition of these paints so that we could paint. We don't know, only the Jains know, the Jain monks know this particular composition of the paint. So we have to know the chemical formula, or you invent it. So he was really like a mentor and coach to many people, trying to bring the best. And he was trying to bring education. He had many institutes, which was like for Tamil, for Sanskrit. And in fact, he's very okay with having, it's not, even though he converted himself to a follower of Shaiva, he never antagonized anybody. He wanted everybody. So he was like, okay with having their mutts, their religious sect, whatever they want to do. He was okay with all of that. All he said was, my purpose here now to bring people is by art, science, music, and sculpture. This is where he was focusing, and he wanted to do trade. He wanted to increase the trade. So he was trying to build this port in Mahabalipuram.
That's quite a visionary, kind of a character, right? So, how he wants the best for his people. Yeah, like, this Tirukural that says, Kodai Ali, Sengol, Kudiyombal, Nangum, Udayanam, Vendar Koli. Vendar Koli is, he's the light among kings, is what this says, right? Who, takes care of, who is benevolent, who takes care of his, kin and his kingdom, which is, it's quite a visionary, kind of a character.
It is. He is. And as I was thinking about it, I was thinking, how could he really accomplish this, right? Then I was remembering this pyramid. And I'm also pointing out something that Kautilya, the Chanakya, was saying. What is the king's duties? Think about it in your organization today. What you would think: legislative duties, judicial duty, financial, military, promotion of trade and commerce, promotion of arts and education. India has this beautiful history. They thought about everything, the very advanced civilization they led. And that this pyramid, I was thinking about Mahendravarma Pallava and how he was able to do this pyramid. He built that. First, you have to have a physiological needs met, which is food, water, warmth, rest. And he built really fort. In the first chapter, it is said that the fort that he built with moat, Agari is the Tamil word for moat.
Yeah.
It's such secure place. Pulikesi wouldn't be able to come inside that fort. He would camp outside. Indefinitely he would think about camping outside. But nothing. He cannot even break a single stone from that fort. Such security he built for his people. And that how he created, and people love him. He's a people's leader. And and I was talking about Sivagami, the dancer. She's very famous, and that he made sure it's communicated to the other side, other than Pallava kingdom. So everybody knows Sivagami. So he was promoting her art. And it is like a prestigious thing, right? And he was promoting wrestling. Narasimha Pallava is the wrestler. And it is very interesting. India won 2 wrestling, right? Including today. Today we won bronze.
Won a bronze, yeah.
Yeah. So when I was watching, I was thinking really about Narasimha Pallava. He's a great wrestler. That is why he's called Ma Mallan. Later we will talk about it. So he built this pyramid, right? And then he was working on the top pyramid, which is self-fulfillment needs. He was trying to bring up that full potential of his people, but that's when the Pulikesi War was happening. So in my opinion, I thought this is fantastic, man. I mean, this is how a leader should be. People, and he has created this friendship with other kingdoms. He is not going war. And exactly, isn't that how India is today? We are, not exactly, but this pyramid, but this is where we have to get in so that we can realize our full potential. And that if we have to become a superpower, this is where all of us have to work together. Now, Chandrasekhar, I also thought about something else, is that when this COVID second wave hit us, I saw each and every one lived a legacy life. Let me tell you how. Because the government couldn't really do anything. All of us were, and it affected us in different ways. But one thing that stood out was the oxygen concentrators not available, or oxygen tanks not available.
Yeah.
What happened? The pyramid worked itself. It was not a top down that came. It's not the government. I'm not talking about the political nothing. I'm just simply pointing out my observation. It is the bottom up that worked out. It is everyone rose to the occasion. Everyone worked in a way that was helping each other, right? And in my own apartment, there were like about, at one point, 23 families were affected. Each one had about 4 or 5 people in each one of the family. And how these people gathered together, they were supplying food, they were taking care of their needs. Okay, people is okay. Then there was this migrant workers going, and how each other helped each other. And even street dogs, who would take care of him? Suddenly I see so many people going and taking care of them. They were giving food, medicine. let's not go into why there is street dog, why there is poverty, but I'm simply pointing out how the bottom of the pyramid was helping the top pyramid. Today, people are conducting their vaccination drives. People are helping, doing in whatever way they can help. So this is where I think India is strengthening its base. So sooner or later, we are going to realize our full potential.
Absolutely, yeah.
And to conclude on Mahendra Varma Pallava, why I saw him living a legacy life is that definitely he's a transformational leader, Chandrasekhar. He's not a transactional leader. Transformational leader is somebody who takes a step backward and then works for the benefit of everybody. Yeah. And throughout this first part, I was seeing things like, I really invite you all to read Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hat principle, how he wears different hats when he is with artist, how he is an artist, and when he's with warrior, how he's a complete warrior. He is then and now. And how when the problem is there, he would fully wear that problem hat and he would analyze the situation and how he was doing things. So Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hat concept was played in that first part so beautifully. I really invite you to read that book. And how he is giving to the world. The lighthouse in Mahabalipuram today. My dad is a history teacher, so he even tells me, I mean, can you think about a lighthouse stronger than the Mahabalipuram lighthouse? Think about what kind of technology they had. They didn't have all these machines. They didn't have all these bulldozers or anything like that. How they came out with something that is so, that we can even preserve today, can look at it. But it is up to us to preserve it. That is a different thing. But then what kind of a legacy he has lived and left, and how he is going about can attitude. I can take care of people. I can live without war. And monomaniacally focused on bringing people together. Now, I borrowed that particular sentence from Robin Sharma. I'm just so in awe of how I saw that word connecting to Mahendra Varma Pallava, and how he created heroic future for the next generation, like Narasimha Pallava and the Pallavas who followed, and how this systematic approach, he was able to deliver results for his people. So that is about living a legacy life.
That's very fascinating to see how somebody like Mahendra Varma Pallava and epic that was written so far back has so many of these leadership concepts that are embedded right in there, right? So it's quite fascinating.
And as I said, I'm going to give some examples of people whom I came across at the same time. This is Tererai Trent. You can Google about her. She's from Zimbabwe. It was from a very poor family. She really wanted to go to school. And she couldn't because they didn't allow girls to go to school. So she would do the homework of her brother. And then and she got married, I think, around the age of 11. But she had this fire in her. I wanted to study. And some NGO came and gave her an opportunity to. And I think she had 5 children by the time this NGO came. She comes to United States of America. She finishes her undergrad. And when the NGO comes to her village, as the story goes, one of the person asked volunteer, what is your wish? What is your dream? And she said, I never dreamt anything. Nobody asked me this question about my dream or the spark, what I should have. And so she writes something in the paper and hides it under a rock. That paper read, I want to do my undergrad. And so this NGO somehow gave her an opportunity to do her undergrad in US. And she finishes her undergrad, comes back to the rock, and she writes her second wish. I want to do my master's, and hides it in the rock, goes back to US. She finishes her MS and comes back. And she writes the third thing. I want to do my PhD. And she finishes it in agriculture, PhD in agriculture. You can read about her. And now what is more important is not that she did that. What she is doing is that giving back. How I was talking about this legacy, how he give back. Terrorite Trend today, with the help of many organizations, creating school for many children in her and around village. So many girls like her, many children like her could get proper education. This was a story that moved me. And I thought, wow, that is quite a willpower, right? From going nowhere. Now, why this one shook me to the core was, see, I go to Shankara Eye Hospital in Bangalore. Chandrasekhar, you know about Shankara Eye Hospital. So I am a volunteer life coach for the nursing student there. And in one of my conversation, I asked all these students, so what was your dream before even I read about Terrorite Trend? And a couple of girls said, I really wanted to become a scientist. And one said, I wanted to become a pilot. But because of the opportunity or situation, my family, whatever, I am doing the nursing as a training coach, nursing training in Shankara. So I was thinking, it's not Terrorite Trend. It could be anybody. It is just that all of us have to have the dream. All of us have to have that right opportunity. Somehow we have to have that faith we can do it. We have to make that work for us somehow. So there may be so many Terrorite Trends, even in India. I mean, even your neighboring village. So if there is a way that we can help them, that would be fantastic. And I would like to see each one of their stories coming up tomorrow. The second one I want to talk about is Sindhutai. Sindhutai won Padma Shri. She is from Pune. And her story is also similar. Very, she had, I think, 2 or 3 girl children, and she was expecting her 4th. And she comes from a background where girl children were not really celebrated. And the husband throws her off the house, and that she was begging in a railway station. You can read about Sindhutai. And she saw so many other children being orphaned and sitting in the railway station. So she said, why should I just beg for my own children? Let me beg for all children. And she starts begging for all children. And then now it's a very big organization, really. And the same husband comes to her after she became so popular and all those things. She said, I cannot accept you as my husband. My self cannot accept it. But I will do one thing. You can be my another child. This much I can do to you. And that is Sindhutai to her. Having traveled from Zimbabwe to Pune, I want to talk about our own Hema. She is the CEO of Amphia. You can read her book. And by the way, thank you, GCT, for providing me an opportunity to read about Hema Annamalai. Tadaigalai Tagarthu is her latest book, where she talks about her journey. When everybody, are you in computer science? Can you read computer science related? Do you learn programming, tech stack, this, that? She has done a factory. It's an electric scooter that she's doing. It's called Amphia. And she has her factory in Coimbatore. And she has given a lot of job opportunities for many, many, many people. So for me, she's living a legacy. In her book, she talks about her spiritual journey as a mother and what all the business nuances she had to learn and how she went about with the spiritual strength that she has. For me, I just pointed out only 3, but there are many people who are living a legacy life, and my salute to each one of them.
And so my biggest takeaway, I think, from the stories that you said, told Niranjana, that irrespective of your background, where you come from, what position you are in today, whether you are undergrad, you have education, you're a postgrad, whatever, right? There is an opportunity to live a legacy life. You can contribute, you can give it back to the society or people around you, irrespective of your situation, whether it is your societal status or anything, right? It doesn't really matter. It's only the mental makeup that makes the difference, which is, I think, what Bharati says here as well, right? Absolutely, the visionary that he is, right? some great, this poem inspires me every time I read it. He says, தேடி சோறு நிதன் தின்று பல சின்னஞ்சிறு கதைகள் பேசி மனம் வாடி துன்பம் மிக உழன்று பிறர் வாட பல செயல்கள் செய்து நரைகூடி கிழப்பருவம் எய்தி கொடுங்கூற்றுக்கிறை என பின் மாயும் பல வேடிக்கை மனிதரைப் போலே நான் வீழ்வேன் என்று நினைத்தாயோ. I mean, look at look at this guy. He gets angry when somebody is sitting there and gossiping. You know, he says, why should I, you know, live a sedentary life? You know, I will go and achieve everything that I want to.
Isn't that
right?
true? Isn't that true? How just by reading it, right? பல வேடிக்கை மனிதரை போல் நான் வீழ்வேன் என நினைத்தாயோ. What a question with that vigor, right? Will I? Am I simply here to eat, sleep, and procreate? Am I not here to achieve great things? This man is everything, I tell you. I mean, and he also tells, right? I mean, if you read all these people, if you think about all these people, what everybody did was they went beyond I, me, mine, to us. And this was very prominent everywhere, you know, during the COVID time. I also had an opportunity to go to Mahakumbh Mela just after the first wave was over. I did a solo trip. I was there for 5 days, and everywhere this was very apparent. Everybody is trying to help everybody, and everybody is trying to pull each other out of this pandemic. And even the people who didn't have the minimal wage were saying, I can't complain, ma'am. I cannot. Because like me, there are so many are going through. If I can help them in some way, I will do it. This really moved me. And Chandrasekhar, I'm going to tell you, this is what I thought to myself. And this would be something, you know, after reading this first takeaway, I thought, if I can love my life and if I can be enthusiastic, and I'm going to be so grateful for all the things that I have, most importantly, I must accept myself. If I do that, half of my problems are solved. Most of my problems are because I cannot accept the way that I am. So I am going to request you, love your life, be enthusiastic, be grateful. Please be grateful, accept yourself, find work that you love, develop a character, inspire others, and always respect others. There are so many of us who are trying to learn from each other. So please respect others always.
That's really wonderful. That's really wonderful, and I really loved the takeaways from that one. And as I said earlier, it doesn't really matter, you know, where you come from, what you do today, what is your social status, you know, what is your financial status. You know, leaving a legacy is, you know, all in, you know, it's inspiring. Take inspiration and be an inspiration.
Correct. Exactly. The second takeaway, Chandrasekhar, I think we were talking about strengthen your strengths. In the first part of the story, I was looking at Mahendra Varma Pallava, how he was strengthening each one of the characters. He himself knows his own strength. He's a great patron of arts, I said, architecture, excellent warrior. One thing that stands out in that story is an excellent spy. I mean, he's very talented in disguising himself. Nobody can find out that he's a king, okay? And he would disguise himself, go to Pulikesi's camp and pretend that he's a spy for Pulikesi, and he gives out information to Pulikesi. That is his strength. And then at the end of the second part, he would tell Pulikesi that I was the spy Vajrabahu who came and gave you that information. He really will play his strength left and right throughout this part 1 and part 2. And he also looks at Sivagami and checks her strength. She's such a talented and gifted dancer. If I get her married to my son, she will be just like a doll, like a princess, princess or a queen or something. He didn't want that. He knows her strength, and he would push her to do all these different abhinayas. And he would even tell her, can you, the Bharata Shastra says this, can you do better than that? He would challenge her, push her, and bring the best out of her. Similarly, I was talking about INR, who is a talented, gifted sculptor, and he would really bring the best out of him. He would question him, why this Buddha statue is like that? Can you do better? I think you have the potential. And can you, and he would also encourage the person to get the particular chemical formula. I was talking about the paint. And Narasimha Varma himself is a great wrestler and a talented warrior. So he would push him to strengthen his strength. Why is it this strengthen your strength is very important? I will go about it a bit later. So this is all Mahendra Varma Pallavar's direct influences of all these people. Paranjodi. Paranjodi is this kind of a center character in part 1, where he identifies his strength in throwing that spear. And he wants to include Paranjodi in his army. Finally, he becomes the minister, I think he's the, I forgot which minister he would become, but he's a warrior. He would head the army and they win the war against Pulikesi later point, but he would mentor him. I know his strength, and he would save him from Pulikesi camp. So many things would happen such that because he knows Paranjyoti's strength, just like that, he will figure out, okay, this spear is from Chola Nadu. From Chola, these people are very strong in throwing, aiming at things and getting things. So he would figure out each one of their strengths, and he would really strengthen their strengths.
That's very interesting when you say that, right? Because in the corporate world, there's a very famous quote that says, "The leader is only as good as his team," right? So it's not only knowing your own strengths and honing them, it's also about knowing the strengths and weaknesses of your team or the people around you, so that collectively you can create something bigger, right?
Exactly.
Achieve something. Yeah.
I'm going to start with a small story again, Chandrasekhar, if you don't mind. So there lived a big philosopher called Zoroaster, and there is this Persian king who goes and says, I'm like this great king, can you give me your wisdom? And Zoroaster gives him some seeds. And so the king, I am like great king and you are giving me seed. And he throws it away and he goes off. After some years, again, he goes to Zoroaster and again, he asks the same question. Zoroaster again gives him seed. He can't decode what is the seed business is all about. So he goes to an Indian philosopher and he gives, this is what Zoroaster gave me. And the Indian philosopher says, what a great thing he has taught you. The seed has the potential to create many, many, many plants. The seed has the strength to sprout. But if the seed does not realize it has the potential to sprout, it will never sprout. That is the second takeaway by the seed. The third takeaway from the seed is that in order to sprout, it needs the right situation. It needs water, the warmth, and the nutrients. So if we have to strengthen our strengths, we have to have a better, for us, better self-awareness. What I can, what I cannot, which are my vulnerabilities and where are my strengths. Now, as you said, you are an average of 5 people. Everybody says that. So depending upon these 5 people, you may get to know your strengths. And I really invite you to figure this strength of yours, have this better self-awareness. What this helps is, it helps you to make better choices. Can I not? If I do, what are my options? And you can tie that up with your results significantly. See, it's not that one day I get up and I'm going to be just a monk. No, it doesn't work that way, right? Correct. So I really have to know what my strengths are. Can I really do it? Do I have the support or structure or the situation to help me? And how can I go into that result mode?
Yeah, great.
So I thought about 2 things, Chandrasekhar. When Mahendra Varma Pallavar was talking about when he was strengthening the strengths of his people, one thing that I thought about is self-awareness, which we just talked in the previous slide. But then other thing is to have this coach or mentor. What they significantly help you is because they can observe you. They can look at you as a person, I mean, without any judgments, right? They immediately know, okay, this person is capable of this, this, this. Now I am being in the profession. At this point, I'm responsible for my team. I see them having unlimited potential, but each one has a different potential. Now I'll have to coach them in different ways. This is very evident even if you're a parent, right? You will see your one or two children, let's say you will see each one of your child will have different strengths. And if we don't coach them appropriately, if we let's say force them into something, they wouldn't flourish. We will have to only bring out their strength. And that is what I saw Mahendra Varma Pallava doing in the story. He saw the potential of Paranjoti, and then he becomes a coach to him. He was guiding him. He was mentoring him, all those things. And as I just described how he was doing it for Sivagami and how he was doing for his spy network. Now, this is Mahendra Varma Pallava. There is Nahanandi, who is this villain of the story. His strength was amazing. He has this physical agility, and that his strength was his ability to connect with people, because being a monk, and the story goes that his body is so strong, even when a snake bites him, the snake will die. It is such strength is what he possesses. And this is amazing. Like, he travels a lot. He creates this people connection. With that strength, he will take over Mahendra Varma Pallava in many places. He cannot do this checkmates with Mahendra Pallava just like that, So he plays this game very nicely with Mahendra Varma Pallava. And I was thinking, so the first thing is to be self-aware. Second one is to get a coach or mentor to figure out how to strengthen your strengths. And in every situation, Chandrasekhar, I was thinking, we initiate a task. Let's say we strengthen, we give all that we got, all that fire we have, we pump it up, we magnify it, and we can sustain that success. But at any point, you take a review of the situation, you realign yourself, you balance yourself to see, am I doing the things that I really wanted to do? Am I going in the right direction? Is this what I have got myself to? This kind of comes to STARS model. This is a management principle that those who are in the industry will know. This is about startup, turnaround, accelerate, realign, and sustain. These are all, you would see that playing in your life throughout, and that this is all inevitable. You will be in different phases of your life in one of these 5 modes. Either you will be starting something, or you are strengthening your businesses, or you wanted to sustain the success that you've got. But at any point, you will have to do this analysis. You have to realign. For example, when all this pandemic came, everybody went to online. And all these people who were giving lectures in person, now everybody went Zoom, to the point that you are becoming kind of sick of these Zoom meetings per se, right? So, but in essence, self-awareness, coaches, and evaluating your situation in one of these pockets and figuring out how do you focus your energy becomes very important.
Exactly. We realigned, we in the beginning, and then we sustained, and then now we are strengthening, right? So it's exactly those 3 things that 3 of the 5 things that you spoke about, this pandemic situation. Very interesting. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
I also recommend you all to watch this movie. This is an Oscar-winning documentary.
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix, yes. It's about my octopus teacher, very inspiring story of an octopus. And I just wrote something, but I'll just speak about it. My takeaway from this documentary was, if an octopus has the strength to face a shark, and she has the creative ways to escape from shark, think about us, magnificent creatures walking on earth, how much potential we must all have, and how we should all realize our own potential and how we must strengthen our potential. So I really recommend that you watch this and share your takeaways later on when you get a chance. And very interestingly, Chandrasekhar, I'm not, this is apolitical talk. I have nothing, this is not a political statement. But after the election in West Bengal, I saw this man, Prashant Kishore, who was a strategist, right? There was one interview only that I saw where he said, I knew the opponent's strengths. So I knew what I have to do, where to play. Then my mind was all getting into thinking, whether it is in your personal life or your professional life, when you know your own strength very well, then only you can understand the opponent's strength and you can choose to move your cards accordingly. So that it's not about a game. It's not that it's about winning and losing. It is about making that experience pleasant for both, for everybody, right? And I really liked him as a strategist who said that, because he said, I knew the strength of my opponent. So this again goes back to Arthashastra, where Chanakya says, I know, I don't know how many of you know that, but this is about Maurya. Chandragupta Maurya's teacher is Kautilya the Chanakya. He was going against Nandas, and that there is a very able minister called Rakshasa. So he would know the strength of Rakshasa. So if he moves this coin, he would know what coin Rakshasa will move, the minister. So just knowing his own strength and the minister's strength helps him to build this great Maurya kingdom, later on. And this is just to give you the perspective, so connect you to strengthen your strength. Tying back to the coaches, Rani Rampal, Sindhu, and Mirabai Chanu, each one of them, they are here. Of course, India team lost, but it's a crucial moment for us that Indian hockey team went to play bronze match. Sindhu winning and Mirabai Chanu fetching a silver, all because of the coaches. They all knew what strength they all have and that they strengthen their strength. So that would be your takeaway for the second. We just
that's great. When you said, I think in the social media era, I'm sure most of us would have in the last few days received a forward about Rani Rampal, how she came from where she came from to be the captain of India and taking in the Indian hockey team to where it is today, right? So it is very inspiring to know that when you know your strength and when you have the right coach, when you seek the right coach, seeking is very important as well. Yes. Seek the right coach, how it can transform your life.
Exactly. And to quote Rumi here, what you seek is seeking you. So you must become a seeker so that, your coach comes to you. You have to have that aspiration in you. I must become something. And things just fall in place.
Absolutely.
And the third thing that I got from this, we will quickly go over, is that concept clarity and action clarity. So the concept is very clear. Pulikesi wants to expand his kingdom concept. And Pulikesi himself is an able villain. I was telling you about Thanos, right? He gave a good fight to Harshavardhana. I don't know whether you all remember in history books, you would have learned about Harsha. He is the main reason why Harsha didn't come below Deccan Plateau. He gave such a fight to Harsha, and that's why Harsha couldn't come down Narmada. And he has this, he wants to expand his, this is a concept. Now, think about a period where you do not have any ERP system. He comes to conquer Pallava dynasty with 16,000 elephants, 5 lakh soldiers, foot soldiers, cavalry soldiers, procurement, and he has to carry all these weapons. And today it takes about, by car, From Badami to Kanjipuram, it takes about 12 hours and 45 minutes by car. Think about having to deal with all elephants, horses, everybody from Badami to Kanjipuram. What kind of action clarity one must have, right? And if they become sick, how to take care of them? If somebody gets hurt in the war, how to take care of them? The medical facility or the food. And for elephant, how much food will you carry, right? In one point of the story, they talk about if at all Pulikesi comes to South India, the entire Kaveri Delta is gone. That is the might of his army. This is what has been told, right? So I was like, when I saw this happening in the story, what kind of action clarity he must have had, and how much discussions that must have gone into carrying out this war. And given that he doesn't even know the language, and he has to camp somewhere, make sure they have enough rest, and how much time he would have planned. And we all talk about scrums, we talk about a project planning, we talk about various tools that help us today. And with nothing, no software, no computer, he's able to carry on with this kind of a clarity was appalling to me.
But how does it's just going back here. So how does one achieve concept clarity or action clarity? Isn't that I mean, what is your take on that?
See, it all goes back to the question. I have a spark, let's say, to talk about this own talk, right? I had a spark. Okay, there is an idea. I am trying to see how the Sivagamiyin Sabatham could be mixed with leadership management and all kind of things that I was thinking, right? So there has to be an action clarity. First, the action is to get the Sivagamiyin Sabatham book, and that how am I able to see various takeaways that we are talking about. So there has to be, so concept is clear to me. I see something, that's all it is. It's a concept that I can see, but what to do? Step 1 is to get the book. Step 2 is to read the book. Step 3 is to figure out whether it is all aligning with what I am talking today, right? So similarly, if you're a student, let's say you're an engineering student, the reason you're in engineering is because somehow or the other you like engineering somewhat. I hope it is not forced on you. Even if it is forced on you, you have to have a liking, because you have to spend 4 years in the college, and that the concept should be very clear. When I get out, what should I do? That much one has to be very clear with it, right? Whether I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to work for some organization, or I'm going to create my own organization, or I'm going to apply this knowledge somewhere for the welfare of others. So some concept has to be clear, and the action clarity has to happen at least from your second or third year. If I have to go to let's say a computer science related organization, I must learn programming. Now, having at least clear with that action, now what should you do? Right? You either enroll in some courses or get into something, or you become an intern in some organization. You figure out what exactly that one thing you really want to do. This, at least one must be very clear. I will tell you my own personal story, Chandrasekhar, is that when the concept that I had was, I didn't want to be an engineer to start with. I really wanted to be a doctor. But having come to engineering, having chosen computer science, the one thing that I was very clear is I wanted to do my master's. But I couldn't do my master's because I didn't have the financial aid at that time. So what is my action plan? Okay, I have to work somewhere. If I have to work somewhere, I have to get a job. If I have to get a job, I have to pass these campus placement or exams or interviews, etc., etc., etc. So how do I go? This is how I went in my own life. The action clarity, it refines, it defines it, you define it, you refine it, you go on refining this action clarity. Okay, if I fail in the first campus placement exam, I will do better next time. Okay, what did I not do? Okay, I didn't read MCQs of something, let's say, or I didn't do logical programming properly. then I go on improving it. So when your concept is clear, your action should be defining and refining, defining and refining. You evaluate, is this action working for me? And even after you get placed, okay, you are a newbie in the organization. What can I learn? What are the things there? Where should I go? If I'm joining as a trainee, can I get, if I'm an intern, is there an opportunity for me to become an employee of the organization? What skill should I have to become an employee? Oh, I think I'm very good as a cartoonist. Can I do an anime picture? Oh, I think I have a very good skill, let's say public speaking, then I can become marketing or sales. I'm very influential, by the way, I can influence people. If I figure this out, if I have that concept clear, I take that respective action. Let's say I want to improve my public speaking skill, I can go to Toastmaster or ask somebody to listen to me and correct me as we go. So this, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. So so when you know your strengths, I'm just looping it back to the previous point that we spoke about, right? And irrespective of the position we are in, when you constantly sharpen the axe, as they say, right? Sharpening the axe. You spend time more time sharpening the axe, and for you to achieve the results. So when you continue to continue to sharpen the axe and putting on your efforts as to seeking clarity, that's I think that's where we are going with this.
Exactly. And I wanted to bring another story, right, to this. This man is Bruce Lee. I hope some of you know who Bruce Lee is. Excellent martial artist. He set a style for himself with a 1-inch punch. By the way, because I'm learning martial art, I kind of try to quote many martial art related stuff, but he's one of them. This is from a movie called Enter the Dragon. This is a scene where he is surrounded, all the doors are closed. There is no escape for him. Now, we are talking about a mighty martial artist. He could like go on, do punch, break, nothing. He will just sit quietly because he needs that clarity. What should be my next action? I know I have the willpower. I know I have the physical power. I know everything that I can do, but between my next action, I need to create that space within me so that I can think clearly about my next action. And this was complete meditation to me. I never expected Bruce Lee to do meditate in a very big fighting scene. He just sit quietly. He just calms down. Okay, what should be my next step? Similarly, in life, we will be faced with many situations. And most of the time, we will be very impulsive. We will be reacting, not responding. We will be reacting. Okay, somebody punches me, I'll punch back. Something hurts me, I'll hurt back. But that is the time we all have to quieten, calm. There has to be very big clarity in our mind. The action clarity. What should be my next step? And this is inevitable in all our life. We have to create that space within ourselves. We may be in a very busy street, bombarded with so many impulses, but we have to create the space within ourselves where we can think clearly. And in COVID time, I have seen this playing in many places. People are, trying to get the bed. They will do anything to get the bed. But there will be a volunteer who thinks calmly, clearly on their behalf, and that to help them. So
that's very profound when you said that, right? So not every time will you have a peaceful ambience or a environment where you can sit and meditate and think very clearly. You may be in the midst of chaos, and confusion, but you still need to train yourself to think very clearly and have that action plan, what to do next. I'm reminded of this bout, the wrestling bout that we had a couple of days back, where Ravi Kumar Dahiya, we were talking about this earlier, right, won the bronze, right? The previous match, the one of the qualifying rounds, he was down on points, but he qualified in the last 10 seconds. He knew that the only way he could win was he has to fell the other guy, right? He has to really floor the other guy. So that is, victory by fall. So that's how he eventually won. But it happened in the last 10 seconds, and in a wrestling match which lasts 6 minutes, and and the other guy is above you with respect to points, like where you cannot fight him on points. You have to have the concept clarity and the thought clarity, even in the midst of all the tension and everything, right?
Even the last second, right?
Yes,
he wins
exactly.
by his technical superiority.
Yes.
And this is like amazing, right? If your own self, you have to think calmly, what can I do at that point? I agree with you. It's very good example. Thank you for pointing that out, Chandrasekhar. And it's so relevant because now it is Olympic time and we are all like going gaga about it. So, but this is tying up to that example.
Yeah.
I will just rush through this because I said I'll take 15 more minutes, but I'm going to rush through it. I have great respect for Vijay Mallya for two things, not because he did something to India, no, for envisioning Kingfisher Airlines, which is pioneered as a low-cost airlines. Think about the concept clarity and action clarity he had. And that, of course, he did many things which backfired him, but at least to have that clarity. Now, Kingfisher is a name that we all know, we all remember. And he even dared to do this formula team. Did you know that he created this formula team? And that F1. Now it is F1, yes, F1. And you can watch this beautiful documentary again in Netflix on how this great formula team that he built, he was very successful, and at first time in India, nobody, he thinks grand, right? And he has that clarity. This is how I'm going to do it, and he does it. Of course, Force India, it is called. And that, of course, there is flaw, he did that. But I wanted to give his example for that concept and action clarity. Similarly, I want to give example of Anil Ambani and Mukesh Ambani. Anil Ambani is Stanford graduate, and people poured him money. But execution flaw. Mukesh Ambani's strength is execution. He may not be very pleasing personality, this and that, but he knows how to get things done. Concept clarity, action clarity.
Fantastic.
Concept clarity, action clarity. Again, this is the model that I go Zimbabwe to Pune to Coimbatore. I'm tying back from Enter the Dragon to GCT. This is a beautiful team that is here who thought they have to do something for the present GCT students. They form a committee. They are doing so many things. Mentorship program, startup communities. They're also doing, hosting GCT talks. I was awed by the effort and the organization in which they are doing. Each one of them have that concept clarity and what to do. Now they started this mentorship program. I was really appalled by the amount of effort and time they have spent in making this program. A big kudos to you, and my salute to each one of you. Thank you for doing this, and to the students of present GCT. Please take a bow, and all our gratitude to each one of you for whatever, in spite of your personal things, right? In spite of you having to do with your professional, taking care of your professional life and your family life, you are still giving back to the community. I really salute each one of you.
That is how you live a legacy life.
Now you see that living a legacy life, strengthening your strength, and each one of them who are pointed in the screen, they have their own strength. In the mentorship program, they were tying each one of the mentor and mentee based on their background. Somebody sat and did all these things. This was like amazing to me. So living a legacy life, strengthening the strengths of each student, and that there is a action and concept clarity and action. That brings to the end of our series, which is talking about you are the author of the story, right? I was in tears when there is a scene where Paranjoti, the great warrior, who was coached by Narasimha Pallavar, Mahendra Varma Pallavar initially started, but he becomes a true friend of Narasimha Pallavar. How there is one particular scene where he was captured by Pulikesi, and Mahendra Varma Pallavar kind of um, takes him away and makes him escape from this, and they have to fight a war. This is exactly like a Kurukshetra war, where Paranjoti says, I don't like this war. I'm just going away. I don't want all these things. And Mahendra Varma Pallavar coaxes him and then says, okay, no, you're a warrior. You must do it. But the story would have it, the first initial thing about war really hurts him so much. After winning Pulikesi, after Mamallar becomes Vadabi Kondan, Paranjodi gives up everything and he becomes Sirutondar, who is one of the 63 Nayanmars. For those who know about Nayanmars and Arvars, I really invite you to read about Sirutondar. He becomes a Saiva monk, a Saiva saint, right? And Nahanandi, who is this Buddhist monk, the Pulikesi will be killed in the war between Narasimha Varma Pallavar and Pulikesi. He dies in the war. Nahanandi, being the twin brother with their physical similarities, he will become a king. So monk becomes a king, a warrior becomes a monk. Nobody says they should just live what they were started with. It was everybody's story. They changed their story. Right. And this is same thing I read. There is this monk I read about Dandabani. Dandabani is, again, he's a Saiva saint. He was trained by this, in Hawaii, there is the Sivan temple. There is this Swamiji who trained him to be a monk. Now he became an ex-monk. Jay Shetty, who wrote this book called Think Like a Monk, he took up monkism, monkhood in Hare Krishna, and he said he's an ex-monk now. So there is nothing stops you from, this is what I say, define, refine. This is my story, I refine. You are the author of your own story. You can become whatever you want to become. It is just that the situation may be different for you when you start doing something. It may be your aspirational goal to do something else. But at the end of the day, you are your own author. With that, I end.
But I have a question here. Niranjana. Right? See, when you're saying that I am the author of my own story, many times, many decisions in my life are either taken by my parents, by people around me. The society sometimes dictates what I have to do and what I do not have to do. Sometimes if I'm in an organization, if I'm in a say educational institution, many times my teachers take decisions for me, or my faculty members do that. My managers do take decisions for me. So how do you say that I am the author of my own story when there are so many things that influence in and many times it's not even in my control, because as you said, from being an engineer to being a doctor, or taking a science to a commerce or whatever, right? So how do you explain that?
I would like to go back to one of the slides before. Just give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
You remember this pyramid I was talking to you about?
Yeah, the hierarchy.
The hierarchy.
Yeah, for those who do not know, this is Maslow's hierarchy theory. It's a very, very famous, business concept, right?
Yeah, it is. Now, I have been in the same situation. I wanted to be something different, but I ended up being something different. Now, can I write my own story? I say yes, because just like how Mahendra Varma Pallavar rewrote the story of a king who is supposed to just do war, expand his kingdom, etc. He said, no, my story, I am going to create peace and harmony in my kingdom. And that to do that, I have to lay out these foundations. Now, it is so, you're so true, Chandrasekhar, that it may not be possible that I can, if my situation is like that, if my parents support me, I can write my story however it is. But if I come from a family which is dependent on my own things, then I can't write my story. But what should I do to do this triangle, self-realization that is top there? I'll have to lay out these foundations. For example, if I want to do a startup, but my situation is something that I have to take care of my parents or whatever, right? Physiological needs, I have to take care of their safety needs, and I'll have to give them the reassurance that I can do this. And then at that time is the time. So it is priming. I'm priming myself to write my story. It is not because I'm not going to write it immediately, I'm a failure. No, I will take time. But aspirational goal should always be there. This is the story I want to write for myself. This is what I want to become.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thought, and I like how, I know it's really interesting how you linked it back to this, because everybody's life is different. Each person's each person's position in life is different, on a day-to-day basis. I may be a lot more secure today compared to somebody else who is still outside, who is still struggling to fulfill his physiological needs. But then each one of us have a path that we can etch, right? And we can if we have, as you said, is if we have the concept clarity and the action clarity as to when to go about doing what. Yes. So and I think that's a beautiful takeaway. Yeah.
So that's all I had to share today. And if anybody else have any questions, probably I'll take it. But before that, I really would like to thank Chandrasekhar for being with me and actually guiding me, because I was going bazooka with so many slides. He said, no, just think about it. Tie back. Can you do better? So he really strengthened my strengths, and he gave me action clarity. And he helped me to write my own story today with Sivagamiyin Sabatham. So I thank you all for listening to us. I know we went 1.5 hours, but I hope it is somewhat useful to you, and that we can take some questions, if at all, if there is any.
Just to quickly add, thanks for having me. Sorry.
No problem. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. Because as I said earlier, I have not read Sivagamiyin Sabatham, like many other possibly, right? So this indeed kindled my interest, and I hope I'll go back and read Sivagamiyin Sabatham. I'm sure I will, but I hope I'll do it sooner. So thank you very much, Niranjana, for having me here and making me a part of this. Thanks.
Thank
and
you.
Thanks GCT, team GCT, for this. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you both. What an amazing show. So we really enjoyed it, and we don't have much questions, as most of the questions were covered by you, Chandrasekhar. Thanks for covering most of that and making this making this whole conversation more engaging and interactive. This is the first of its kind, and GCT Talks, like, we have an engaging and interacting session, facilitated by a non-GCT. And so thanks for staying with us throughout the talk and guiding us through the way. We have one comment, a compliment from Surya Angamuthu. He's from batch of 2002. So on the YouTube channel, so he has complimented. So great insight, Niran. Thanks for sharing. So thank you, Surya, for that comment. With that, we will wrap up this session. Probably we're going to make this video as a bite size and gonna float it around to all the mentorship group, so that they will be able to get the insight, because it's actually an epic, I would say. So we'll have to break it into 4 parts, and then we're going to communicate to all our audience. So thanks a lot, Niranjana, for your wonderful thesis, I would say. Until we meet next time. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Niranjana and Chandrasekhar, you can stay back. I'm just gonna stop the recording.
Sure. Thanks.
Thanks.